To defeat an enemy, you must know them. Not just their battle tactics, but their history, philosophy, art. Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome back to
The Chiss Ascendancy.
It's episode 109.
Wow.
And we are in our penultimate episode of the Heir of the Empire comic read-through. We're in part 5 of Heir of the Empire out of 6.
Mm-hmm.
And just after that, we'll be in Dark Force Rising.
Yep. We will be, moving on 2 weeks to book 2.
Yep. So, as of right now, kind of telling you where we are at in the story. Mm-hmm. We are mainly on Merkur, with Luke and Mara having just crashed after Luke's silly escape using his robotic hand. And to quote you, R2's ChatGPT skills. And then we're all on Merkur as of last episode. Han and Lando are there. They went there with a friend of theirs to look for a slicer to help figure out how the Empire knows about Leia's whereabouts. Also, Thrawn is on Merkur because he has a feeling that cards...
It really starts to feel like a Scooby-Doo episode where like everybody's in the hallway at some point, but at different portions they're in different rooms that
or
are
different
off
doors.
The hallway, but we're all converging on the hallway, you know?
Yeah.
That's
And
what it feels. Merkur's the hallway.
Merkur's the hallway. We're all there. All roads lead to Talon Card, as you've heard several times, which is the truth. And we do get a little bit of a glimpse of what's going on with Leia as well. So things are really starting to come together because obviously you have to realize we're getting close to the end of the book, right? So picking up right from there, we are with Luke and Mara on page 1. And I would like to say this is probably my favorite cover art so far.
Yeah, it looks really neat.
Obviously, you have the first cover art, which has like all of the characters and whatnot.
I wonder if there was nobody at the like the quality control for this comic when it's being drawn up to be like, should be green, right?
Yeah.
His lightsaber's blue the entire comic
The
series.
entire comic.
Yeah. Also, blood.
We keep having the blood with the sabers. What is up with
Keeps
that?
happening. I think we've only ever seen Noghri get attacked by lightsabers so far.
In the comic?
Yeah. I can't remember.
Okay.
You can check my math on that, but I think it's all Noghri all the time because they're the only people that were actually fighting with Force.
Yeah, we had Luke bang, she's diced with the Noghri.
Bam, she sliced and diced, yeah.
And yeah, another thing that's very interesting, if you were at a police station and you had to describe to a criminal, what do they call those things? A
sketch artist?
A sketch artist, yeah. There's a fancy name for it, though.
I always just heard sketch artist.
Forensic sketch artist?
Maybe so.
Anyways, if you had to talk to a police drawer and you were trying to describe a Vornsker, which is the species that lives in the Force of Merkur that hunt using the Force, hence the Islamiri growing out their sphere of influence of pushing back the Force. How would you describe them to that sketch artist? What are some of the main... Obviously, it's not an Earth animal. Name some things or some...
I would say put the face shape of a capybara onto a saber-toothed tiger.
Okay.
That's what I go with.
And when did you say, like, is this a...
You ever thought of a horse as a carnivore?
Yeah. Does it have... The point I'm trying to make is...
Its mouth opens like a crocodile.
Yeah. The point I'm trying to make is, to your point, with some of the art being, like, different than other stuff, if you just Google image search Vornsker, there's a lot... It's much more feline in its look.
It always kind of reminded me as a... almost like a lupine version of the... what's that cat on that's hunting Padme on Geonosis.
The Nexu?
Yeah. It always kind of reminded me of that.
And for the folks at home that don't know what lupine means.
Like a wolf.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like a dog cat. Mm-hmm. But...
You know, a fox is more closely related to cats than to dogs?
They always struck me as kind of squirrely.
No, they're not related to squirrels.
I could tell you were going there with that.
Cats.
The cover art, though, it's got skin. It doesn't look like it has fur. Did you notice that?
Let me take a look, see. Give it to Daddy. All right. Oh, yeah. It's like an alligator wolf.
More
He's
reptilian.
got webbed feet, too.
Mm-hmm. So, as promised every episode, here's the cover. You're not going to see that. I'm going to put it on the screen. And yeah, we're in the forests of Merkur. Mm-hmm, and it's so funny how we keep calling it similar to Dagobah. And then Luke is like, this reminds me of Endor. And I'm like, what the hell Endor you been on?
The forest so alive at night.
Endor, I better know her. So right on page 1, we're picking up right where we kept off.
I hardly know her.
What?
I was just going for another play on it. I was going with like
said.
a Boston thing. Dagobah, I barely know her.
There you go, boy. I barely know her. Some of my favorite art is from that dual page 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. Really cool Stormtrooper art here.
Very cool. I like anything with a Lambda shuttle.
Yeah, of course the Lambda class shuttle is freaking fantastic. And I really enjoy all the different ways that different artists draw a Stormtrooper. Mm-hmm. You never realize that like it can be stylized so many different ways.
Yeah. I think one thing I did enjoy was this was kind of a harkening back to the Stormtrooper being kind of an advanced soldier.
Yeah.
We always just kind of think as the Stormtrooper as the grunts, but when Thrawn is giving instructions to Pillion about like who should go into the city to try and ambush Luke, he says Stormtroopers, and Captain Pillion's like, Stormtroopers? And he's like, well, we need, essentially, I'm paraphrasing pretty heavily here, but we need like some backbone, we need some muscle on this. So it just seems like, they're a more important class of soldier than most people give them credit for.
Yeah, I wish that...
They're kind of like the Navy SEALs in a way, and I feel like...
Stormtroopers?
Yeah, at least in this era of Star Wars. You know what I mean?
So if they're the Navy SEAL, they're the Green Beret, the Army Ranger, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I feel like they're not just, your grunts. They're
so
like...
who's the grunts at this stage?
Frick if I know, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't ever really... I think the problem is most people don't realize that there are probably soldiers underneath the Stormtroopers. Just because you only really see important stuff, which would mean the Stormtroopers are there.
Yeah. You see a lot of that in Andor, where it's like you got your local patrols and stuff like that.
They're not armored at all.
Yeah, when you see Stormtroopers, it's like, oh, things are going bad.
Yeah, they got the heavy guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the original trilogy, it's like we're in the heat of battle every single time. You're seeing a 9-hour version of like the Iwo Jimas and the Normandies of the Galactic Civil War. So on page 3, Luke and Mara, she's like, I'm in charge, we're doing what I say, and then it turns out that a Lambda class shuttle is landing, so she's like, okay, we're working together.
Yeah, pretty much.
Even though she still hates his guts. This episode, or this issue, as I should correct myself, last episode had the most action so far. It was our favorite episode. It was our favorite issue of the comic so far, issue number 4. This one I feel like is the most revealing moving forward into
for sure
different identities, and there's some big play here for what's going to be going on moving forward.
Yeah, not to say that there's not action at all, because I don't feel like that would be true, but it is definitely like the most revelatory. You're learning a lot about, and it makes sense. You're in like the 5th of 6 acts,
right.
And usually Tim Zahn's going to be wrapping things up in the 6th, which, is a little bit different for this because he's moving into book 2, but...
Yeah, there's a trilogy happening, and we're almost a third of the way through it, so he's got to wrap up this individual story, essentially.
He's got to send us in the way we should be going for the rest of the trilogy.
Yeah, and there's things that really are large implications for the rest of the trilogy and ultimately... the rest of the expanded universe at this point. So on page 4, they're in the forest. They're realizing they can't go back the way they came because they're being pursued by the Imperials. Mara says 3 days to Hilliard City. Luke says, and how many of us are going there? And Mara says, that's the question, isn't it? Let me tell you something, Skywalker. I'm going to kill you for a long time. Luke said, what'd I do to you? Which is so ironic because Luke's like first day on the job was killing like 5 million people aboard the Death Star.
Yeah.
You know? So
it is really funny.
What did I do to you? I only killed everyone you ever knew.
I like
He doesn't know she's Imperial, but you
seeing
know what I mean?
this version of Luke more, you know, that you kind of forget about when you just interact with canon material, but he really seems so happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
You know, like it's the same overall persona that we see in A New Hope, except for he's just a lot more self-assured.
Yeah.
And not a way that like he's overly cocky, but he's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says this is Google AI, okay, so it's not like, you know, whatever. But it says several estimates cite between 1.1 to 1.2 million, though some sources just figures as high as 2 million. That includes soldiers, officers, pilots, support staff who lives were lost when Luke Skywalker destroyed the station. So, you know, imagine meeting someone from...
Oh, how dare you.
Sorry, that's my alarm to take out the trash. Imagine meeting someone whose parents died in 9/11, and you're like, what? Like if you were the one that flew the plane? I mean, that's not really what happened, but we're not getting into all that.
Why not? No, I'm just
Rank them, your favorite
we're
inside
here.
jobs. No,
We're
I'm just
here.
kidding. But yeah, it's funny to
You
me.
ever hear
that-
of the Skull and Bone Society?
Oh, yeah.
It was a joke.
Don't
It
get
was a
me
joke.
started.
It was a joke.
Mr. Yordi, are you watching?
He's not.
He's not. But yeah, it's funny how he destroyed the first Death Star, effectively killed or was extremely involved in the killing of Darth Vader and the Emperor and the destruction of the second Death Star, all in a matter of like 3 or 4 years. And she's like, I have a lot of hate in my heart for you. And he's like, what? Obviously, he doesn't know she's ex-Imperial,
me?
but yeah. Moi?
Whatever little I do.
So then he
pretty
says he's trying to show her that they need to cut away through the Force for R2, which I appreciate because when we're on Endor, they're like, all right, R2, hide. And I'm like, he's one twig away from total collapse out here. And
To be fair, I feel like Endor is more of like a mulched playground sort of forest.
Yes,
And
yes.
Merker seems more like a Vietnam kind of forest.
Well, the other thing is, to your point a couple episodes ago, there's a lot of sand. Don't you think that would be like a real pain in the arse to the R2 treads?
Yeah, you'd think so. But then, you know, if I'm going to be, well, you know, he's designed for space. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess probably.
It's
I
funny that
wouldn't
it
think
took us
about,
getting
like,
to Attack of the
deserts.
Clones for anyone to be like, we all know that R2 has like little booster rockets, right?
Yeah.
You would have thought someone that came up with that.
Let's
a million
point out
years
the thing
ago.
that's the most obvious. Really, the only serious terrain we ever see R2 traverse is going to be in A New Hope, which is like an entire desert planet.
Yeah, you've got C-3PO who has 2 legs, albeit really twinky, like whimsy legs.
Yeah.
But then you've got R2 that's like do 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 do
Yeah.
do do.
He's just cruising.
Just cruising. Luke says, "Let me borrow my lightsaber so we can cut a path." And Mara says, "Your concern for my welfare is touching." And she, you know, cuts down a path pretty easily. And Luke says, "You've handled a lightsaber before."
Yeah, he's all like, "Ooh, it's tricky. I don't know.
What's
Can you do
going
it?"
on?
And then she does it, and he's like, "Oh, okay." So
Yeah. Moving forward into
secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone.
loose lips sink spaceships. Moving on to page 5 through 7, Luke and Lando basically figure out. Sorry, Han and Lando basically figure out that Luke has been on Merker.
Yeah, a little Sherlock Holmes and Watson.
Yep.
Who's who? It's hard to say. They're both making great deductions.
I think that actually in this case Lando is Holmes. Yeah,
He's definitely finding all the pieces.
he says.
Although, if you watch the older Sherlock Holmes movies, you always have Watson like, "Oh, look, a footprint." And Holmes is like, "Shut up, you baboon." You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's always very, he like disabuses him of
Yeah, very
pretty much any
dismissive.
contribution.
Yes, yes. I do like Lando establishing himself. Talent cards. They're asking, asking who is inside, things like that. You are holding a droid too. Again, knows everything about computers, but not to keep his mouth shut. And Han says, "Who was he?" Asking who was being held here, who was the droid, all that kind of stuff. And Talent card says that the information's not for sale. And then Lando says, "Maybe we don't need to buy it. Maybe we beat the brakes off your bitch ass and get the information the old-fashioned way." That's a pretty. That's not what he says.
Yeah, it's a pretty.
That's what he's thinking.
It's an interpretive take for sure.
And then Han says, "Here, you do Han. You have your Mark Thompson Han."
I don't have really anything to be honest.
What did you find, Lando? Go ahead.
What did you find, Lando? I like the my impression's an impression of an impression. It's not even first person at this point.
A micro power supply. That's how we got out. The manufacturer's logo is readable. Recognize it? And long story short, yes, it comes from a
biological unit.
This is something you find in an artificial hand. So obviously,
I do really like how Lando's walking through it. He's like, a power supply all by itself. Like, what? Could you read those words for me, big boy? What is it? Sound it out now. And where might we find? I don't know. I'm going Foghorn Leghorn real quick.
In your defense, that's what he sounds like in Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, I think that's where I was going. I don't know. I'll let myself off easy there. I think I go that way because it is a very condescending line of communication to me, where he's like, "All right," and then 2 + 2 is come, you big boy. All right, let's have it.
And then Han's like, "Is it 4?"
Very good.
You're damn right it is. Look at you adding up things. I think over the years, Lando's droid from Rebels turned into Lando. Because Lando sounds like Lando in Rebels, but Lando's droid is like, "Wow, whatever we're having for dinner." He's like molasses falling out of your mouth from The Office. Essentially, they've got him at gunpoint, and he's like, "Okay, what are we doing with Luke?" Talent card, even though he is kind of dead to rights here, just pushes the blaster aside and says, "You'll notice we didn't turn you over to the Imperials." Han says, "What are we going to do about Luke?" Talent card says, "Nothing we can do tonight, not with the Vornskers roaming the forest and the Grand Admiral still in orbit, even though he still hasn't named him." Above the planet, you've got Thrawn back in his super cool secret chair, and he says, "You've found
looking at art some more."
Yep, looking at some more art. And he says, "Have you found them, Captain?" Pelion says, "I'm afraid not, sir. Have you calculated their likely emergence points?" Pelion says, "There's really only one practical choice: Hilliard City. Detail 3 squads of stormtroopers, half a biker scout unit, and 3 chariot light assault vehicles," which is a cool logo or a cool idea.
Yeah.
And then he says, "Stormtrooper, sir." And then Thrawn says, "Card lied to us. You see, that incident today took place in complete radio silence."
See,
what does that suggest to you?
That whole line of conversation there where Pelion's like, "What's stormtroopers for?" You know what I mean? Like, it seems it's like they're definitely an assault unit. Like, if they're on the ground, something's going down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Pelion says, "Do you mean that Skywalker's in the skip ray?" And Thrawn says, "Unlikely, but worth following up." And then you'll notice it's ironic, or very interesting, I guess I should say.
Ironic.
That Pelion is...
Yours was Palpatine as played by the Beatles. Ironic.
Oh, Ringo. Wow, Baba-da-boo.
What do you want to do today?
Oh, I don't know. What do you want to do? Obviously, the vultures from Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Thrawn is very, very intent on still making it to Sluis Van, and you get another one of his genius breakdowns of art from the Sluis Van people, and he says, "We're not moving Sluis Van, not for Skywalker, not for anyone." Sluisi art indicates a biannual cyclic pattern, and I want to hit them at the most sluggish point. 3 squads of stormtroopers should be able to handle Skywalker and Card 2 if he turns out to be a traitor. So to your point, yeah, he really trusts the infantry. Fast forward to page 9. We are in the forest of Murker, and the Vornskers are out in full effect hunting. And it turns out that there's actually they have tails too, which cards did not have tails.
Yeah.
And they hunt using their tails, and their tails actually have poison in them.
To be fair, I'd be rather surprised if I saw... I have a boxer. His name's Alfred. I would be very surprised if I saw a boxer in the wild with a tail. I've only ever seen domesticated boxers with the cropped tails.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see one of those in the wild, I'd have questions too.
Yeah, he said they have tails. And it turns out that it's cutting them off really dials back their hunting prowess.
What does that remind you of?
Yeah. Are there balls in their tail?
I'm not saying they're not.
Cut off their tail balls. That's how you make a Quarren less aggressive. You cut off his head where his balls are.
Yep.
Okay, and then we're back at home base. Talon Card is looking as cool as ever. He's really got the Billy from Stranger Things vibe going on. One leg up on the parapet with a cigarette in his hand.
Maybe one episode of Stranger Things, and I think that was with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was visiting you at your home.
So he's up there just smoking a cig, just having a drag, thinking about life.
Yep.
And the conclusion he comes to is, one way or another, my life here is at an end.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that, like, he's done a really good job of being on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And Jabba
Has he, though?
Well, he's trying to. He's trying to amass, wealth, but then keep
hard
on
to
the
be the
home base
hallway.
of Merkur.
And a Scooby-Doo episode,
Yep.
Just wants to be left alone.
And then moving forward to page...
Quit opening my doors. One thing I did think interesting about this little story arc here is where we find out that Card has the notion that a lot of his employees feel indebted to Luke.
Yeah.
That he's really taken over Jabba's enterprise one way or the other.
Right.
Which seems interesting because it's like working for him, they feel like employees, whereas under Jabba's thumb, they felt kind of like slaves.
Yeah.
Like they felt freed when Luke intervened.
Yeah, Talon Card is the Grand Admiral Thrawn of the underworld.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah.
Where, like, he's a man of the people.
Yeah, the first Hondo.
The first Hondo. My friends!
Yeah. But I did think that was interesting that he was like, oh, we can't let him die. The guys really like him.
Yeah.
You know?
And he's like, that's a problem.
Yeah. I did like that he, at the end of this, says, get some sleep. It's going to be a busy day tomorrow. And then Mara with Luke in the jungle's like, get some sleep. Busy day tomorrow.
Yeah, a lot of that repetitiveness.
Yeah.
And it gets fleshed out in the comics.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Hondo Anaka quote?
No longer profitable.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm. My favorite is, not all... Or he says, all poo-poo times are pee-pee times.
He did not say that.
But not all pee-pee times are poo-poo times. I'm just kidding. But if he said that, you wouldn't even bat an eye.
I mean, it's in character for sure. I think maybe he, says all spice smoking times or spice snorting times, but not all spice snorting times or spice smoking times.
Moving on to page 12.
Sometimes you just need a bump, but sometimes you want to make a night of it. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I still think a lot about how much Clone Wars revolves around dealing drugs.
There's a lot of drugs.
Because they just talk about spice, but they're like, why does the Galactic Republic have a store of narcotics to give out to the underworld whenever they want to make a deal?
Yeah.
You ever think about that? Like a freaking, sleeper cell is getting activated by the CIA and they're like, no, pay us in cocaine.
Yeah.
You ever think about that?
Yeah, there is this
I think about that a lot.
The seedy underbelly of the Republic, unfortunately. It's a real thing.
Yeah, get into the impound planet. I assume there's a whole planet. Since there's a trash planet, there's an impound planet, right?
There's got to be.
Yeah.
Remember I'm discussing
Think of all the things that are seized during, like,
oh, yeah.
a single Coruscanti day.
Yeah, there's a lot of
stuff.
A lot of random wealth out there. Random cool things to have.
A lot of things to have.
They're just out there.
For having.
You want to walk us through this next little bit? Starting in page 12?
All right, let's see. This is going to be back on Kashyyyk. Well, I guess it's our first visit to Kashyyyk in 2 episodes, so it's...
Yes.
I feel like it's wrong to say back to Kashyyyk. Like we're going back and forth. So it seems like it's definitely been a while because Leia's lamenting that they are getting into a routine, which is bad if you're trying to stay on the run. It makes you predictable, makes it easier to ambush. And much to her credit, she gets ambushed right as soon as she's lamenting about being easy to be ambushed. We have kind of a back and forth. She's defending herself, kills a couple Noghri, and Raruk, what is it? Rarushi? Rau'Rushin intervenes on her behalf and absolutely like slams a Noghri into the wall, which kind of stifles our Wookiee versus Noghri one-on-one debate.
Yes, I was thinking that the whole time. And then at the very, very top of page 13...
Absolutely super slammed him.
Yeah. We get a very, very important one-word delivery from the Noghri, which is the word... Malariush, which is very important going
Yeah, it becomes
forward.
very important.
And apparently the way he says it, like he pretty much has Leia dead to rights here. And he stops to say that, and in the midst of all that is when Chewbacca is actually the one that slams the Noghri.
Yeah.
And
but then, we find out that the Wookiees have killed the other 3 Noghri, so they're kind of equal sneaky, up in their trees.
Yeah, he says...
they're definitely at home.
Yeah, he says, don't kill him. So Chewbacca throws him as hard as he can against the wall.
What
knocks
about
him
his
out.
bones? He don't need those.
He don't need his bones.
Let me just break them all.
Then Larry, I almost said Larry. Larry says, come on. No, Leia says, come on, there may be more of them. And then...
There may be more of him.
Larry the Cable Guy, that's funny. Rau'Rushin says, not anymore. The other 3 have been dealt with. And then she says, you're hurt. He says, I'm only a little weak. Chewbacca
I thought that was
who is
interesting.
wounded.
They think of Indri as weakness. He's like, I only am a little weak. Chewbacca, big weak. Big weenie Chewbacca.
And she's concerned for him. She says, Chewie. Rau'Rushin says, we must get away from here before the second attack comes. And then Leia says, there won't be another attack. People will come.
And he's like, not for me. Call an ambulance, but not for me.
Yeah.
There's a fire 4 doors down. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, not to this house. There's a fire 4 houses away. A diversion. Where's Salporan? He did not survive the attack.
Because there were supposed to be 2 teams, right? And so they will have stopped the 1 team.
And then they cut their way out from through the floor. And then in the books, you get a little bit more detail about this, but it's really cool because you get Chewie holds on to, or tells Leia to hold on to him. And she's basically like hugging the front of him, and then he extends his claws out to climb up the roaster trees, which it's in
Freaking
depth
cool.
and really, really cool fashion. It's a little bit less so here. And
She does a cool Home Alone sequence where she takes their climbing rope and makes a, what would you call that?
Yeah, a lightsaber pendulum of death.
Yeah.
And throws it down at the speeder that's chasing them with the Noghri inside, I assume.
I assume that's the whole team of Noghri. It seems like a transport vehicle.
Right. And then on page 16, we get a really, really, really big reveal here. This is probably the most important thing of the whole... This is the biggest development in the book so far.
This is for sure probably the biggest revelation we get all book
Yes. And so we are... we see this panel. There's a Noghri, and he's sitting...
looks like, an interrogation chamber or something. Some sort of
he's being
prison.
held there. And let's see. She's talking to Chewie, saying, I don't much like it either. But he let me go back at the house. I need to know what that was all about. And she opens the door, still in her underwear for whatever weird freaking reason. She's like, maybe he just likes my underwear. And then...
She left the house where all her clothes are.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. You couldn't put something on? They're Wookiees. They have clothes.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
They're naked. You ever see Chewbacca? He wears a bandolier.
Yeah, bandolier would be more what she's wearing now. Rau'Rushin's literally wearing a red outfit. She says, I'm Leia Organa Solo. You wanted to talk to me?
With drip.
And he says, your hand, may I have it? And he smells her hand, and the Noghri bows down and says, you are the Malariush, daughter and heir of Lord Darth Vader. And Leia pretty much just runs with it and says, you may rise, what is your name?
Definitely shows her diplomatic training where...
Yeah, very smart, quick on her feet.
Very quick.
And It reminds me of Obi-Wan being like, that's why I'm here. And the Noghri...
Yes, the army. I've heard of it.
Yeah. 1 million more well on the way, if I'm not mistaken. The Noghri says,
There's more of these guys, right? That's what I thought.
Kabarak?
Okay, very good.
How would you pronounce that?
Let me read it.
Top level there.
Kabarak.
Kabarak.
I got to put a little Noghri schling on it.
Kabarak. And
Kabarak.
And then it says, your father brought us hope and lifted us from despair. In his memory, we serve his designated heir, the Emperor. Which is strange.
It seems like Thrawn's definitely been telling some what he would consider white lies.
Yeah. And then Leia says the Emperor lies, but the Lord Darth Vader, he may have been mistaken. I need your help. If I'm to do anything for your people, you must live to bring this information to them. You must tell me the location of your world. He says, I cannot. She says, take me there then. He says, I cannot. Leia responds, I am the daughter of Lord Darth Vader. Do you people consider a single human to be such a threat?
To which Robert said, what do you mean, you people?
Yeah.
It is interesting here that she it overstates her importance, but then understates her influence.
Yeah.
It seems like something like if I'm on the listening end of that, I'd be like, pick one.
Yeah. Vader, you just said Vader raised you from perdition.
Yeah.
To quote Castiel. And she's like, I'm the daughter of Lady Vader. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And he's like,
what am I going to do?
I'm confused, lady. And so he says, will you come alone? She says, I'll come alone. And then he says, farewell. And then long story short, she talks to Ra Rasheen and Chewbacca. They're going to the funeral for the Wookiee that died protecting her. And basically she's telling them she doesn't have a choice, that she has to go alone if she's going to figure out what's going on. And she senses something there where she can kind of turn the tide of what's going on in this ongoing war that's about to scale up. Right now they pretty much have the Empire dead to rights. But this war that's about to scale up because of Thrawn's presence in the known galaxy, the Noghri seem to be a key piece. And she has to trust that they'll keep their word, which is funny because they're very deadly, but she gets a sense of...
They definitely seem honorable.
They're honorable, yeah, which them and the Wookiees have in common. Page 18 takes us back to Merkur, and you've got this back and
to the
forth.
hallway.
Yeah, back to the hallway where everyone's involved. And you have this back and forth between Mara and Luke, where she won't give him his lightsaber, even though he could be helpful. She doesn't trust him, obviously. And she's trying to float a balloon.
Yeah, it seems to be like a communication satellite, like short range, so that R2 can send a signal to the X-Wing, which was his proposed plan to basically keep him and R2 both in commission.
Right.
She has a back and forth with C-3PO speaking on Card's behalf. Basically, hey, you're going to get ambushed. This is my recommendation.
Yeah. The plan is to make Mara be the one that's running away, and Luke is the employee that's hunting her if they come into contact with the stormtroopers. In the middle of this conversation, a Vornskr attacks her, and Luke beats him.
Oh, here we go. I had this in the back of my mind. We also see the Vornskr bleed.
Yes. Very much so.
I thought I had seen another one. I couldn't thumb it.
You want to give us your best this sound?
No, it's obviously, so in the book it makes
Is he supposed to be saying hey?
That's what he looks like he's saying. I think I remember from the novel it being somewhat clear that Luke is making the sound that Ben made to the Tusken Raiders to scare them off.
The crate dragon sound. Interesting.
And I think that's what he's doing here.
And then he tells, so obviously the Vornskr actually very expertly smacks him in the face with the tail.
Yeah.
And then he says, R2
hits him with his business end.
Yeah, tried to grab its tail. And then while he does that, Luke grabs the lightsaber and basically slashes it across the face. And
he's like, oh, you like that, huh?
Mara says, what in blazes was that stupid game you were playing? Luke said, I didn't think you'd like your hands cut off if I missed. Just drop the lightsaber, move back. Didn't you notice the R2 and I just saved your life? And Mara says, I noticed, thank you. And basically, Luke says, what happened to you? You don't have the faintest idea who I am, do you? Luke says, I'm sure if we'd met, I'd remember. And Mara says, oh, right, the omniscient Jedi. I was a dancer at Jabba the Hutt's palace the day you came searching for Solo. To which Luke replies, you weren't just a dancer, though. That was only a cover Vader sent you to capture me. And this is another one of those weird things where Zahn says one thing and then says the exact opposite. He was like, if we'd met, I'd remember. You weren't there as a dancer. You were there like...
I think it's I would remember, and then I think he's just inferring the rest. Or I guess deducing the rest.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, but you weren't just a dancer.
Yeah.
Dancers don't play with lightsabers.
And then Mara Jade says something very interesting. She said, Vader, don't make me laugh. My master was the Emperor, and you destroyed him. So not only does she have loyalty to the Emperor, which we discussed at length a few weeks ago.
I think you have.
But she also has zero respect for Darth Vader, which is very interesting.
It seems almost she feels about Vader the way that Maul felt about Dooku. It's like competing for affections.
Right. Yeah, I should be his number one, whatever. And then she says, I was his hand Skywalker. I could hear his call from anywhere in the galaxy. I had prestige, power, and respect, and you took it all away from me. Now the Empire is dying and nobody knows me. I spent 4.5 years sloshing around the rotten fringes of the galaxy before hooking up with Card. I worked hard to get where I am, and you're not going to take it from me. And then Luke says, I don't want to ruin it for you. I just want to get back to the New Republic. And she says, we don't always get what we want, do we? Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a busy day.
There it is.
Per your
So
quote.
Snarky. Luke just cannot get a win here, man.
No, I know. Do me a favor. We're on the very, very last page. This is page 24. Break this down and tell me what do you think's going on here with Thrawn as we wrap up. So on Kashyyyk, basically we know Leia's leaving and she's going to meet up with the Noghri above Endor, mano a mano. On Merkur, we've got Luke
in the hallway
finally getting the revelation of who Mara really is and why she has such hate for him. And then we're
now
above...
Now he can start working on his HR response.
Yeah, we're above... Thrawn has left Merkur, so we're in space somewhere with Thrawn. Break us down what we're dealing with on this very last page going into the final episode.
It seems like he's got... it really seems to me like he's building up a new fleet. Pelian's giving him account of how many warships are at the shipyard, which I believe is kind of a repair facility. Am I misremembering that?
I couldn't recall at all.
Okay. Anyway, it's a place where there's a lot of ships, and Thrawn needs a fleet. And so he seems to have a plan to capture these, and Pelian's like, hey, I think, Sabaoth would be a great asset in this venture. And he's like, no, planning's good enough.
Yeah.
And then it's very self-assured. He goes, let Control know that we've got the shipyards now. Before they even attack, he's already certain that they're going to take their target here.
Yeah, Pelian says, it seems to me this is the sort of operation we should use Sabaoth on. And Thrawn says, we don't need Sabaoth, Captain. Careful timing will be adequate for our purposes. And
it seems like Thrawn's definitely trying to do as much as he can without relying on Sabaoth.
Yeah. And Pelian says, he said he doesn't want power. And Thrawn says he lies. All men want power, but we have this ability to fill. But we have the ability to fill his taste for power. And once we're done, he'll be no more threat than any other fool. Pelian says, Leia, Organa, Solar, and her twins. Thrawn says, exactly. Eventually, she and her guardians will run out of tricks. Certainly before we run out of Noghri. And you
kind of a thug line right there.
Yes. It is a thug line, and it also, this is the colder Legends Thrawn that's like, he really doesn't...
he doesn't value life the way that Canon Thrawn does. Canon Thrawn definitely sees value. I mean, we even have like the diametrically opposed examples of Thrawn's like, hey, you weren't trained good enough, death. But then, in the Canon Thrawn trilogy, we have, hey... let me get in touch with your commanding officer, have him reevaluate, his training manual, essentially, so that we can account for stuff like this moving forward. He really sees the value in each of his team members, whereas Thrawn is very objectives driven in this particular rendition.
In Legends, it's interesting because he has Noghri. He's the only one that has them. They're basically off the record, and he couldn't care less.
Yeah, they're just assets.
Yeah, they're just
it seems like they're just currency that he'll spend whenever he needs to.
Yeah, and it's funny because as I'm reading this, there's different things that I can't remember, but I want to just enjoy it as I go. But I was so curious, like, what ruse is he pulling on the Noghri that they think that they're serving the Emperor, even though the Emperor is dead? Mm-hmm. Do they think Thrawn's the Emperor, or do they think the Emperor's still out there somewhere?
I think, if I recall correctly, because he knew that the Noghri wouldn't care about some random admiral and an organization, I think he's having them believe that the Emperor's still around. He was Vader's master, so then they would answer to his master, and Thrawn serves their new master.
Yeah, it's weird how he basically tells them that the Emperor is the heir to Vader.
Yeah. It seems, and that's definitely like the game of telephone that we're playing between what Thrawn's told the Noghri and the Noghri understand, the Noghri tell Leia.
Right.
You know?
So he says that basically we'll find Leia because we've got more Noghri than they have ideas. Mm-hmm. And someone yells from the bridge, "They're ready, sir. You may proceed with the test captain."
Friend of the working mouse.
Yeah, exactly. Cloaking shield activate. And so they have a cloaking shield that is formally working. Excellent, Captain. Precisely what I wanted. I congratulate you and your technician. Thank you, sir. We have the green light. I take it. And Thrawn says, "Alert task force. The Sluis Van shipyards are ours." And so the shipyards to make more ships or to repair ships that have been damaged and basically farm out ships, which is cool because that stays put over the course of Thrawn in canon now. Also feels that way where a vast amount of ships is definitely superior to a Death Star. Mm-hmm. And he said that in canon as well. So moving forward, that is the end of this chapter. The cover art for part 6 is really fantastic. We get a really cool rendition of a Stormtrooper there, but we'll get into that next week. And it looks as if they're borrowing some artwork from Endor. So we'll see what that looks like. So that's the end of Heir of the Empire issue number 5. Where we take off, the thing that interests me the most, if this was my first time reading it, is figuring out what is next for Lady Vader, a.k.a. Leia, and her importance to the New Republic and her relationship with the Noghri and what's going on with that. And we see the first bit of hope against a seemingly undefeatable Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is the Noghri are loyal to Vader first and work with Thrawn because he's the heir apparent, or the Emperor is the heir apparent to Vader's empire, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And they're loyal to Thrawn out of loyalty to Vader. But if Leia is the Minara Yush and she is the direct heir to the Dark Lord, then the loyalties can shift.
She passed the sniff test, so we got it here. You know what I mean? Everybody gets, get a load of this.
Yes.
Perhaps there was more man than machine,
Yeah. Yeah, he did have a scent. Good point. So, very interesting to know what will happen going forward. Standout moments for you in this one?
Quick Google search confirmed that shipyards are building and repair facilities. So, seems like he wants to...
Home base, essentially.
He wants to increase his assets.
It was important to him enough that he was like, look, we'll figure out the Skywalker thing. Sluis Van shipyards are more important.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that's his long-term ambition. I remember when I was first reading this trilogy, what a revelatory moment it was for me to understand that Leia was the heir to the Empire that's referred to in the title, rather than you just assume that it's Thrawn because he's inherited the Empire. You know what I mean? And so even if, and I can't look into his little mind, but even if he intended it to also refer to Thrawn, it was a big game-changing moment to realize that it may have also referred to Leia.
Right. And it's funny, too, because I don't know if you feel this way, but for me, it's always in the forefront of my mind that Luke is Vader's son. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's lost on me that that Leia is Vader's daughter.
Yeah.
And because in the movies they focus on it so much.
Well, and I think it's because you see Luke take after Vader in a lot more ways, in that Vader's entire identity was his connection to the Force, and for the most part, Luke's identity is his connection to the Force.
Yeah.
He's, not doing really any military operations. He's just focusing on the Jedi, whereas Han's still doing things with the government, Leia's still doing things with the government, and Luke's just out there hibernating in space and letting R2 wake him up when he gets where he's going,
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not until the canon novel Bloodline that they make this really big deal about Leia's relationship to Vader.
Yeah.
Which, relationship-wise...
That's a great book. It's also exhausting.
Yes.
There's so much bureaucracy, which I hate in real life or fictitious life.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Yeah, it's very, very good. It's very impactful. It's such a huge part of her story, but yet it's a lot of bureaucracy. It's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of politicking.
It's slow.
Yeah,
compared to most Star Wars novels.
Yeah,
very slow.
So yeah, in my brain, like, the Mara Jade reveal is impactful and is crazy.
That's a big one, yeah.
But the whole thing with, like, what the heck's going to happen with the Noghri and Leia, I remember being very interested in that.
I was very invested in the Noghri just because it was a new concept for me.
Right.
We've got basically an assassin samurai species.
Exactly.
But Mara Jade, it was very interesting for us to see her in this light, because we just think of her as kind of a hired gun with a lot of competence. But now we kind of see her as someone who has values that are maybe currently aligned with cards, but not the same as cards.
Right.
Where the three things she lists as Luke having stripped away from her were like power, prestige, and influence or respect. And it seems, that's definitely telling of someone's character if that's what they value. It didn't really seem like she cared about the Emperor all that much. It was just what the Emperor offered her.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because that revelation of who Mara Jade is very important, but now I immediately shift back to Palpatine and I'm like, ooh, so what does Palpatine got to do with this?
Yeah.
But the Noghri and Leia relationship is fascinating to me, and so I think it's going to be a real treat for those of you who, like, I was texting Chance right before this, and he said he's downloaded the comics so he can read them along with as we're going. So we're really excited. That is episode 109, and that is the 5th part of our Heir to the Empire read through. So we've got one more episode next week before getting into Dark Force Rising. So we are a third of the way through this thing almost.
Crazy.
And we will be back with you next week to check that out. And again, we to this point have not started Vision Season 3, but I've heard really good things. Blast Point's put out an episode about it that I can't watch or can't listen to until I watch it.
There's a problem I have in my life, and it's I only think about important things I need to do while I can not do them. And this is one of those things. So I'll catch him eventually.
Yeah, I've caught up on Season 2 because I had one or two that I needed to finish from Season 2 that I totally forgot that I hadn't done. But I'm going to watch Season 3 soon, and we'll jump into that. That'll be fun. And as of right now, it's Monday evening, so in a couple of days we'll have this out. And we will see you guys next time. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok and Instagram. We're doing a lot more stuff, infographics or different facts and things like that on Instagram especially. Yeah. And so check that out. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share with all your friends, comment as you're following through what your takeaways were from this week. And remember, the Force will be with you always.
And also remember, more importantly than that, the only family you have here is me.
We'll see you next week.